If you've been watching my live streams recently, then you'll know that I've recently discovered Toontown Rewritten, a fan-made online game created using the same assets of the once popular Disney MMORPG Toontown Online. This game was in development the very same year Disney closed their online subscription service game. It just shows how popular this MMORPG has become. From 2003 to 2013, Toontown Online saw a flourishing online community where Disney fans and gamers of all ages mingled and battled the evil businessman Cogs. Throughout this time, Toontown Online would receive numerous awards and acclamations for its rich and engaging gameplay and unique art style. I'm sure plenty of gamers shun this game just as another kiddie game with the Disney aesthetic. But honestly, Toontown is still a joy to play and experience after all these years. I have no doubt that many of you watching this video also share fond memories of this game, so I believe that this game would serve as the perfect topic for a retrospective video. In this video, I will outline the history of Toontown Online along with going over the significant aspects that made the game stand out among other MMORPGs. It's my hope that by the end of this video, you'll be motivated to make an account and start playing Toontown again for yourself. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you can, please leave a like as it does help. One of the biggest shifts in gaming to emerge around the late 20th century was the rise of the MMORPG genre of video games. MMORPG stands for Massively Multiplayer Online Role-Playing Game. The roots of the genre can be traced back to the 1970s and 1980s with the introduction of MUDs or multi-user dungeons, which acted as text-based multiplayer environments where players could chat, explore, and battle together. Heading into the 1990s, the decade saw tremendous growth in both the graphic capabilities of computers and internet access. MMORPGs became even more popular with games such as Neverwinter Nights and Meriden 59. These games provided players with realized online worlds mixed in with various role-play elements such as in-game economies and world building. Between 1999 and the early 2000s, online gamers would enter into a golden age of the MMORPG. This was due to the advances in graphics and processing power, but also the increase in internet connectivity that allowed developers to create more ambitious and detailed worlds than ever seen before. The best examples include games such as RuneScape, released in 2001, and Star Wars Galaxies, released in 2003. But no game attracted players to the MMORPG like World of Warcraft, released in 2004 and created by Blizzard. World of Warcraft at its peak would have had around 12 million active subscribers. One could argue that this game is what brought the MMORPG genre into the mainstream, as the game would set a precedent for future online games to come through its emphasis of exploration, quest completion, and competitive nature. With the growing success of online gaming, plenty of game developers between the late 1990s and 2000s were throwing their hats in the ring of online multiplayer gaming. Whether it be through console or PC, these companies realized the potential profits in having an online user base, and that's where Disney comes into discussion. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, Disney published many different video games with their partnership with Capcom Games. Many of you who grew up with an NES or any other retro console probably remember playing hits like DuckTales, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, Goof Troop. Just like today, you could typically expect every major cartoon or action film to have some video game adaptation. And for the most part, they usually range from bad to mediocre game-wise. Well, almost every Disney published game had a certain quality of control. Throughout this time, Disney would prove that they could create fun titles for the video game medium. The 1990s would see Disney's own Disney's Virtual Reality Studio create several popular virtual reality games that would serve as major park attractions for years to come. This game studio of Disney would also work as their research and development department. By the later 1990s, as the MMORPG was getting more popular, Disney VR would begin conceiving ideas for their own online game with the familiar Disney brand. By 1996, Disney VR launched its foray into the first online gaming endeavor, and it began with a partnership that fostered between them and Electronic Communications. This was the team that developed Lucasfilm's Habitat and Worlds Away, along with the very late-to-come Cartoon Network online game known as Fusion Fall, which would not be released until 2009, but the very early plans for this game began here with Disney's attempt to enter online gaming with the project known as Hercworld. The project would amount to nothing, as Electronic Communications could not abide by Disney's strict standards. Particularly, they had trouble developing a safe system where children could chat without being exposed to cyberbullying and bad language.
I was the lead designer on Toontown. We started making Toontown in, I want to say 1998. So I used to be at the Disney Virtual Reality Studio. We were originally doing interactive theme park rides, and we worked on this thing called Disney Quest, and when it was wrapping up, we said, hey, this internet thing's starting to get pretty hot. Maybe MMOs should be a thing for the Walt Disney Company. We believe very strongly in family MMOs back in the 1990s. And so we gave this big pitch about the future for Disney is online theme parks, and online theme parks means MMOs. And give us $100 million so we can make 10 MMOs.
Plans for an online game seemed almost gone until Disney's own Jesse Schell, a member of their VR studio, began working on a prototype by the name of Toontown. This game was one of the main attractions at Disney's Internet Zone located in the Epcot Center. This game proved to be a huge success at Epcot, as players got to play their own favorite Disney characters while playing a simple game of tag. Interactive attractions within video game platforms were proven to be quite the cash in the 1990s. In 1998, Disney launched the rather ambitious and totally not a ripoff of Sega Arcade known as Disney Quest. For this endeavor, Disney had their own VR team concentrate more on creating interactive virtual reality games, and the attention was taken away from the early prototype of Toontown. Soon the development team became very much worried that an online game might be put on the back shelf. To further the project, Jesse Schell, the main developer behind Toontown, would request $5 million from Disney to finish the project. With the funds needed, the next endeavor in the Disney MMORPG would be a game that took place in a theme park. The game would use a prototype that was directly copied from Disney's Atlantis, The Lost Empire. Jesse Schell liked the prototype so much that he began just designing the game based on the film itself, with players playing as Atlanteans. It seems silly, but at the time Disney sort of overestimated the audience for the film, as Atlantis only had moderate success in box office. With this idea in the can, Jesse Schell and the rest of the Disney VR team went on to design a multiplayer online game which took place in a familiar Toon setting, a place where cartoon characters lived and played together through enhanced interaction and exploration. In creating this world, the team were given a considerable amount of creative freedom and control. Given that they had the Disney IP, they basically had a catalog of design assets that could be incorporated. When making the early demo of the game, the main goal was to create a very much whimsical setting akin to classic Disney cartoons. Regardless of what age you were back then, I think anyone could have appreciated the classic look of cartoons. For Disney fans of the late 1990s and early 2000s, Disney would constantly run their more vicious cartoons from the mid to late 20th century in between their original programming. Many kids, including myself, would be exposed to these cartoons and would retain the memory of the classic art style. More of a reason why Shaw and the rest of Disney VR focused on incorporating the various aesthetics of classic cartoons into their online video game. In creating the early demo, the team decided to build a game engine from scratch. This engine would be the Panda 3D or Platform Agnostics Network Display Architecture. This is the aspect that provided Toontown with its unique look, which has been described as a squash and stretch style of animation, so familiar to the classic Disney cartoons of the mid to late 20th century. The animation department would be headed by Disney artists Philip P. Lara, Bruce Woodside, and Diane Little. For Santa Studio, Disney would partner up with Sound Deluxe Music Design Group. By 2000, Disney VR were creating an initial demo for what they would call Toontown Online. The game would be given an official launch date of June 2, 2003. And the demo for the game would premiere at E3 in 2001. It was here at E3 that Toontown Online was introduced as the first MMORPG designed for children and families to play together. The game would emphasize cooperative elements, a charming world, and Disney's unique approach to online safety. Toontown Online was released in the summer of 2003, a perfect time considering this time of the year is when most kids are thinking about summer break. This year, Toontown won several awards such as MMORPG Game of the Year from Computer Gamer World, Family Game of the Year from Game Industry News, and a Silver Honor from Parents' Choice Foundation. While many back then, particularly older gamers and their teens, shunned Toontown as a kiddie game, the game proved to be a huge success among both kids and adults.
Uh-oh! What would you do? If you pick C, you're ready for Toontown!
Many factors allow Toontown Online to flourish as a MMORPG. This segment of the video, I wish to take some time to explain these factors. Firstly, Toontown was marketed as a kid-safe and family-approved game at the time when most MMORPGs catered to a mostly adult audience. One of the early major challenges discussed in the early making of a Disney-approved game was meeting the strict requirements set by Disney executives. Electronic communications failed in this aspect when trying to conceive a safe communication feature between players. To remedy this, Jesse Shell and Disney VR equipped Toontown Online with a speed chat system. This was a hierarchical menu-based chat that allowed players to communicate pre-approved messages of everything they would have to say while playing. In doing this, they would prevent players from typing in curse words or other profound remarks. They could also prevent players from giving out personal information like phone numbers and addresses. If two players did want to communicate more intimately, then they would have to purchase the secret friend system, which allowed players to exchange secret codes outside the game, which in turn would allow them to communicate with selected players in the game. The same aim for preventing bad or profane language was also applied to the name creator, which keeps players from naming themselves with inappropriate names. Secondly, Toontown was a game that facilitated cooperative aspects within gameplay mechanics. Players were encouraged and could easily join up for battles, along with participating in various fun mini-games together to earn in-game currency. This thing not only made it easy for players to become instant friends, but also teleport to each other to complete missions and quests. Third, Toontown was a game that defined the notion of accessibility. For a lot of PC games, both past and present, your experience in running a game would vary depending on the specs of your computer. Toontown's entire client was less than 30 MB compressed. Regardless of what computer you had, you could run the game smoothly. This was aided by the fact that it was a web-based game, but also because of the lower memory required to run it. This also resulted in a short load time when starting a game. So in terms of accessibility, it helped that this game was free to sign up and play, download, and run instantly. However, to access the full game, players would have to sign up for a monthly subscription service. But regardless, the easy accessibility allowed players who were skeptical of the game to check it out for themselves. Fourth, we should discuss the costs, particularly when it comes to maintaining the game. Unlike other MMORPGs, Toontown did not have an extensive customer support service, and this allowed Disney to save a ton of money in terms of online support. Since many of the players playing Toontown for the most part would have been kids who probably had little to no knowledge of how to operate computers, Disney developed a comprehensive system that worked to detect driver problems and provide important information in running the game smoothly. All of these factors aside, Toontown's gameplay is what made it acclaim, and the story, well, it was simple and zany. The official story given in the early animation shows Scrooge McDuck from DuckTales visiting Gyro Gearloose, when upon entering his lab he stumbles upon an evil robot with a note stating, "Do not touch." In the typical cartoon fashion, Scrooge hampers with the machine until the robot is activated. Upon seeing the many gadgets and gizmos in the lab, the robot decides to build, well, even more evil robots that would become Cogs. These Cogs in turn would set out to make Toontown boring, gray, and dull, and more suitable for a workplace that has no room for such childish designs. And that's the main story in a nutshell. The Cogs of Toontown serve as the ultimate contrast to the Toon characters seen in the game. Cogs have a goal of taking over the colorful and vibrant Toontown and transforming it into a black and white metropolis. The Cogs themselves are split into 4 groups, those being Sellbot, Cashbot, Lawbot, and Bossbot, with around 8 different Cogs for each group. Each Cog can range from level 1 to 12, and depending on the player's level and gags, caution really should be taken when confronting the tougher Cogs. Now, it wouldn't be too funny to point out the irony of fighting business-type robots featured in the game, funded and overseen by Disney executives, or the fact that the core story revolves around fighting corporate robots that threaten creativity, while at the same time serving as a major critique of corporatization. Originally, Cogs were going to be human enemies named Suits, but due to some disagreements on the way businessmen were treated, the name had to be changed. Regardless, we can appreciate the level of detail that went into designing the bots, which were designed by Disney veteran Bruce Woodside. Now we get to gameplay, which Toontown's gameplay mostly centers around the repetitive cycle. To fight Cogs, you need gags. To acquire gags, you need jelly beans to purchase them, as if this game wasn't ridiculous enough. To get jelly beans, players will have to complete Toon tasks or minigames using the trolley cart. Like other MMORPGs, gameplay centers around completing challenges and tasks that help level up your player, but with an obvious fun and zany twist. Health takes the form of points within a laugh meter, and instead of weapons, you get gags, various comedic props and gizmos that are used to fight Cogs during battle. These items range from a hole or sliced pods, water shooters like a squirt gun or seltzer, to large items like anvils. By completing Toon tasks issued by Toontown headquarters, players can increase their health and unlock new gags, and also increase the number of gags they can hold. To acquire gags, you need to purchase them at the gag store, found in every safe zone location on the map. So, as I stated earlier, gameplay does get repetitive. Players find themselves in a constant cycle of acquiring more jelly beans to acquire more gags, to defeat more bots, to restore health and require more jelly beans and require more gags. But the cycle in this case works tremendously well, and even after playing this game in my early 30s, I found that gameplay is still enjoyable. That's probably what made Toontown and other MMORPGs at the time extremely popular, because this never-ending cycle is all a part of that aspect of seeing your character grow and become more skilled. While Toontown is relatively easy to get a grasp on, it takes a lot of time to process through the various challenges. And the great thing is that you don't have to do it alone. The developers personally made it so that the player can jump into any battle with instant notice, regardless of how far into the battle another player might be. To me, this factor really encourages teamwork and socializing. As you make more friends, they can be called upon or recruited to help you complete a harder task, or vice versa. The caveat of the entire gameplay has to be the clearing of cog buildings. As I discussed earlier, the main plot has cartoon characters battling for control of Toontown. While exploring, you will at some point come across a cog-controlled building that at the same time act as factories where new cogs are produced. To help make a section of the map safe for toons to explore, you will have to gather a party of 3 other toons to enter a cog building. I mean, you could enter these on your own, but be forewarned as the cogs do increase in level in the amount the further you get through the building. Once you defeat the main boss bot, the building will convert back to its classic toon look. When entering these buildings, in basically every turn-based battle, players can easily retreat or leave if things are not going their way. But in the case where they lose all their life points, well, the player will be transported back to the nearest safe zone. Life points can be refilled by participating in minigames, fishing, or finding items that refill your life meter. Even though gameplay can get stressful at times, there really are no stakes here, as players are instantly transported right back to the safe zone where they're given a chance to restart again. Disney would actively promote the game through many commercials shown across their 3 major cable TV networks. Those being ABC, Disney Channel, and my favorite channel out of the 3, Toon Disney. But regardless of the success, there were still some general criticisms related to Toontown as an online platform. Anyone could sign up to play at no cost, but to access the full game, one would have to have a subscription which ran about $10 a month or $80 a year for a full year. The price would serve as a barrier for families, as most could find better things to spend money on back then. Plus, the subscription service would make it so that only certain players would be able to access certain gags and toontasks. At the time, this created a familiar sense of FOMO, or fear of missing out. This is a subliminal marketing strategy that all online games would to a certain extent incorporate, and Toontown here was really no exception. Along with the criticism of the subscription service, Toontown also had a fair amount of competition back then as well, as 2004 was the year in which World of Warcraft was released for the PC. To promote the game this year, Disney pulled off a massive charity function with the help of the Starlight Starbright Children's Foundation. This event happened in July of 2004 and featured appearances from many popular teen celebrities, mostly from the Disney Channel. Not only did it help promote the Starlight Foundation, but also increase the awareness of Toontown as the next great online game. This year, we also found a few changes to Toontown being made to provide players with a more interactive experience. One change was the activity of fishing, which before had players simply waiting to catch fish on a whim, and once caught would have players perform a button mash to reel the fish in. Disney decided to allow players to aim their fishing line in the direction of a fish and simply hook it in. 2004 also saw the addition of a housing system for players. Each toon would get a deed to their own home, which could be customized by purchasing furniture and decorations for the Toontown catalog, ran by another Disney character, Clarabelle. These houses work to provide players with a chance to escape from the busy toon world of tasks and cog battles and just relax. Another popular feature added this year was the placing of your jelly bean currency within your bank. This helps considering that a player can only hold so many jelly beans at a time given their level. Players also saw the introduction of doodles this year as well. These doodles are pets that toons can train for battle. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, that's totally not a ripoff of another cartoon. But regardless, it was pretty cool, as toons will need to take care of them and ensure that they don't get lonely. Perhaps the biggest update in the game came in the form of Cog headquarters. Instead of entering a great building, players were able to explore a full neighborhood that consists of Cog buildings. This was part of a new storyline that had players entering into Cog neighborhoods in an attempt to rescue captured shopkeepers from Toontown. These new areas not only included a ton of battles, but also a bit of platforming as well. These areas proved to be a massive challenge, along with serving to provide additional features to the game. Notably, this involves toons gaining access to a boss bot headquarters by acquiring a Cog disguise, along with finding 6 other players to help them infiltrate the HQ. Between 2005 and 2006, the population of Toontown was seeing a tremendous increase in users, so much so that Disney sponsored the gathering known as ToonFest. Held in beautiful Bird Bay, California at Walt Disney Studios in 2006, the event has sold out within 1 week of announcement. This event, much like the game, featured plenty of decorations and colorful aesthetics fans were familiar with. It also featured a live-action Disney HQ, which provided attendees who dressed the part with various toon sets. Attendees could also enjoy the various costume contests and mini-golf tournaments. ToonFest also allowed Disney to provide fans of the games with a sneak peek at the game's new features. ToonFest proved to be such a success that the following year, Disney decided to bring the festival event to Walt Disney World Resort in Florida in the Fantasia Gardens. Once again, this event sold out within 1 week of the announcement, and fans were once more immersed in a live-action world depicting their favorite MMORPG. Between 2008 and 2013, the year of the game's closure, Toontown would receive the occasional update and new features. On September 19, 2013, Toontown Online, the first MMORPG made for kids and approved by parents, officially announced its closure. Players were given a 1-month notice before the official closure on August 20th, 2013. Several factors contributed to this closure, such as Disney's growing attention to the newer MMORPG Club Penguin, the game which the company purchased in 2007. Additionally, Disney's new video game project, Disney Infinity, stole some of the fame away from Toontown in 2013 when it was released. But ultimately, the chief factor for the closure was that Toontown's lifespan had run its course. Like many MMORPGs of past and present, at some point players are ready to move on to the next popular game. And when you consider that many of the original players whose ages range from 7 to 12 when the game debuted in 2003 would have been in high school around the game's closure. You also have to consider that by 2003, Toontown Online was competing in the video game market that was dominated by games that had a wider appeal and did not require you to have a subscription service. By this time, plenty of online games such as Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Minecraft, and Roblox were making waves, and Toontown was becoming slightly irrelevant.
And it worked, and they gave us the money to build Toontown Online, and it was an incredible experience getting to build that and seeing it come to light and seeing it be successful. And I was so disappointed when I found out that they were announcing that they were going to close it out. They just announced that they're simultaneously closing Toontown and Pixie Hollow and Pirates of the Caribbean Online, so they could focus all their energy on Club Penguin and on Disney Infinity, which was really, really disappointing because Toontown, I don't know, I've always felt it was something unique out in the market. Toontown especially, I mean, Pixie Hollow has a lot of great aspects to it too. Pirates I was a little less involved in, and I think that game has its own set of challenges, but it was really disappointing that they're talking about closing all these up. So,
despite the closure, there are still a fair number of adult fans that throughout the years have formed a Toontown community that would eventually work on a revival project that was set to keep the game alive. This is where we return to discussing Toontown Rewritten, a game that today remains active and is constantly updating and tweaking the game for players' enjoyment. Toontown Online, despite being a kid-friendly MMORPG, holds a unique place in gaming history, particularly when considering the marketing of video games as a medium. Video games went from being marketed towards kids and teenagers to being marketed to older adults, but few games were ever created in the mind for families to play at home. That factor is what really allowed Disney to stand out in the entertainment industry, as the majority of Disney creations, whether we're talking about interactive theme park attractions or video games, were always made with the intention of entertaining families. And at the end of the day, it wasn't just kids playing Toontown. Oftentimes, parents themselves would make and create their character and play with their children online. Looking back at the game today, the community-driven revival project known as Toontown Rewritten reflects the powerful sense of nostalgia that is associated with the original Toontown Online. And hopefully by now I have convinced you that this game, even after 11 years since its closure, is still worth playing today. Before I go, I just want to thank all of you out there for watching this long-ass video. If you enjoy my content and would like to support what I do, well, it's easy as hitting the subscribe button and leaving a like and comment. In the comment section, let me know what you think about this video, and for that matter, Toontown Online. If you played this massively multiplayer online RPG growing up, did your younger sibling play it? Let me know in the comments, and once again, thank you for watching. Peace out, y'all.